Hello everybody to this latest episode recounting my adventures in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and in particular a very happy Father's Day to all of the dads out there. I myself had a very nice day, thank you very much for asking. My son drew me a picture, basically saying all of the things that his daddy likes best most in the world. You can see here we have the cat, yes, that's something I like. Here we have what I can only imagine is kind of a game of Ludo going on, which is apparently what in his mind he imagines D&D looks like. And over here we have a packet of sweets, which he gave me as a present. And here we have the greatest pizza known to man, Quattro Formaggi. So there we go, 4 cheese pizza on the floor where the cat can walk on it. No notes? No notes, that's a perfect day right there. So the eagle-eyed among you will notice that we are in this session recounting not just 1 but 2 sessions of D&D today, and this is due to a slight change in my workflow. That means that going forwards I'm going to be doing one of these kind of recount videos every 2 weeks, which then gives me more time in the off weeks to do more of those kind of video essays or kind of silly video ideas, which seem to be going down quite well at the moment. I've had some really good traction on the last few videos and I want to kind of keep that going. So, Dungeon of the Mad Mage. So in the last 2 sessions, we are currently on the 12th floor of the dungeon, the so-called maze level. We've basically very quickly learned that this area is, for want of a better word, a kind of battleground between the drow of House Freth and a tribe of Minotaurs. House Freth, we already knew were here, thanks to the shenanigans going on the floors above with House Ovrindar. The previous floor was basically a battleground between House Freth and House Ovrindar, and this floor seems to be House Freth's kind of base of operations. And in particular on this floor, my character is very keen to locate a lady called Erlal Freth, who is the priestess of Lolth in charge of this place. And this is because of a side quest that I was given by the Harpers in Waterdeep to locate a goblin called Kef, who was travelling down to Tobriel's graveyard on the 13th floor and has apparently become waylaid / potentially captured or killed by the drow on this floor. So between us and those drow, however, there are first of all a whole bunch of Minotaur that we had to get through, all of whom were apparently not only worshipping the demon god Baphomet, but were actually trying to actively summon him at the time of our arrival. And this is very interesting because we previously had heard rumours from House Ovrindar that House Freth, the drow house, were in league with Baphomet and had turned their back on Lolth herself, and this was one of the reasons that there was kind of this fight going on between them in the first place. It was one of the justifications for that war. So it's very interesting that it seems it's been a case of mistaken identity or a bit of Chinese whispers going on where actually it's the Minotaurs that are following Baphomet and maybe not the drow. So what actually happened in the last couple of sessions? Whew, a lot of combat. The session started with a very big fight in which a bunch of Minotaurs kind of ambushed the party. We fought them off, and in the process, my character used his newest level 6 spell. I've never had level 6 spells before, it's amazing. Soul Cage is the spell I took as my warlock feature, and I was able to use it to absorb the spirit of one of the Minotaurs in the moment of his death, so that I could then use his soul to kind of learn from it. It seemed very thematic to my character and who he is. And so the way that Soul Cage works, in case you don't know, you basically get 6 charges from each soul, and you can use those charges in a number of different ways. And one of those ways is it basically gives you a free cast of Speak with Dead. So you can use one of the charges to like ask a question of the soul. And so I asked the soul basically, how many Minotaurs are there on this floor? Where did the Minotaurs come from? So we know which area to kind of avoid or go to, as it might be, and who is in charge. And from this, we learned about the Shrine of the Horned King, Baphomet, nearby. We learned that Maku the Shaman has 10 bodyguards. Whether these Minotaur that attacked us count among those bodyguards? Who knows? But potentially we've got 10 Minotaurs and a shaman up ahead. So, armed with this knowledge, we decided to kind of carefully head in that direction. I think it was basically the only direction we could go in anyway. So, and what followed was probably one of my favourite fights in the entire campaign so far. So we arrived in this kind of large shrine area to find Maku, the shaman, and his 10 bodyguards all in the middle of some sort of summoning ceremony. They are summoning Baphomet the demon. There's this huge pile of drow corpses in the middle of the room, and they're doing some sort of song and dance around the outside, which in my head anyway looked almost exactly like this. Because I'm a Nintendo kid and that's just where my head goes. Now, of course, our arrival in the room did not go unnoticed, but Maku at first was kind of unwilling to break the chanting just because we'd arrived, and he was kind of keeping an eye on us, trying to figure out who we were and why we were here. So what was the plan? So the party quickly kind of conferred, and we realized we're outnumbered here. There's no way that we can take on a shaman, 10 Minotaurs, and a demon god all at the same time. Action economy alone, we're going to be swamped here. We need some way of dealing with the situation. And so our wizard, Virtue, he came up with the idea that he would cast a magic circle around us. Magic circle is a very high level spell which basically protects us from summoned demons and like Baphomet, so we would be protected in this area. But the casting time of that spell is 10 minutes, and there was no way that Maku was just going to stand by and let us cast it without interfering, and so it was time for distraction. So I decided once again to draw upon the soul trapped inside the cage, and with a little bit of DM creative license, because it's not technically on the list of things that you can do, but he said, yeah, sure, you can do this. I was permitted to draw from the soul the knowledge of how this ceremony is supposed to work, the words you're supposed to say, the steps you're supposed to take. And in our bag of holding, we just happen to have a few drow corpses from previously slain drow that we've carried around, very macabre. But basically I step forwards and I take these drow corpses out and I toss them onto the pile, and then immediately I step into the exact same movements and the exact same chanting that the other Minotaurs here are doing. And so the shaman, he looks at this and he just, I roll well enough on my persuasion check that he's just like, okay, fine, obviously this is some follower of Baphomet, and he allows this to happen. And this does give the party long enough to complete this magic circle, upon which the moment that the circle is complete, everyone jumps inside it, and I loudly proclaim to the shaman, the only thing getting summoned here today is my god, Klabu, who will deal with all of you. I cast Summon Elemental right in the middle of the summoning circle. It's a water elemental, of course, and it has my god's face, and he appears right there in the middle of the summoning circle. In my character's head, I have literally summoned my god, even though I actually haven't. So yeah, we roll initiative, and boy, what a fight that followed, let me tell you. So not only were there those 10 Minotaurs, shaman, there's a magic circle, there's a summoned water elemental floating around, and then in the first turn of combat, it turns out that old Maku here, he has a freaking brass horn of Valhalla, doesn't he? And he blows it, and a whole bunch of barbarians appear and just swarm us. And suddenly we're just fighting off enemies from all sides. Everyone's casting AoE effects. I'm actually getting hurt more in the crossfire from friendly fire than I am from direct attacks. We're all huddled inside this magic circle, just kind of holding everyone at bay as they kind of swarm in from all sides. And in the middle of it all, my water elemental just takes on the shaman Maku single-handedly and finishes him off by very thematically just engulfing him and having him drown inside. Yeah, very nice. Fight's finally over, we kind of dust ourselves off, and for our trouble, we were able to get ourselves a nice gloves of missile snaring, very nice, and a brass horn of Valhalla, which has been blown. We have to wait 7 days to cast it again. And I was able to get a very nice new cloak off the Drow Shaman, a cloak which has been made out of drow skin. Just the sort of thing that my character would want. So yeah, next session comes along and we continue on through the passageways. All of the passages here are full of very thick fog, and so we're being very careful to proceed forwards. We pass through this one area where there's like 2 pillars, and the mist between these pillars is coloured red. Now I should point out that in this session we were actually 2 characters down. Both Tix and Auric were absent from the table, and so our party was very light. It was literally just myself, it was Virtue the Wizard, and it was the Frog King, Raynome, the Rogue. And so I jokingly said, oh, I'm sure if Tix was here he would just walk straight through the pillars there, because that's the sort of player that he is. He just, you know, if the DM gives him a button, he's going to press the button. You know, he's that sort of person. And so everyone was joking about it. We're like, yeah, he totally would go through. And so we had his character sheet, and so we sent him through. And lo and behold, he had to take a wisdom saving throw. He failed it, and he achieved a point of permanent insanity. He basically got a new flaw that says, anger consumes me and I cannot be reasoned with while my rage is stoked. I felt very guilty about this because, you know, it's one of those unwritten rules in D&D that you shouldn't mess around with other people's characters when they're not at the table. So I pretended like we didn't notice this change of personality, and we're like, oh, he's just walked through and he seems absolutely fine. And he's like, oh, I'm fine, it's fine, you know, being angry. And we're like, okay, well, great. Then in that case, I will go through as well. And so I walk through, I also fail my wisdom save, and I also gain a point of insanity. The flaw that I gain is the world is my hunting ground. Others are my prey. Which is very character appropriate, actually, because I have literally been hunting drow ever since joining the party, and I have a list on me which has all of the people that I am permitted to kill and all of the people that I'm not permitted to kill. And only now that I've got this flaw, I'm looking at the list, and suddenly it's like I have dyslexia or something. The words are all kind of jumbling around and they're not staying still, because it almost looks as if everything is in the kill column and there's nothing in the not kill column. Huh. Who's to defy the will of the list? At this point, I'm basically like Santa Claus in Futurama. Everyone is on my naughty list.
Mobsters beating up a shopkeeper for protection money. Very naughty. Shopkeepers not paying their protection money. Exactly as naughty.
So we proceed into the next room, and straight away we know that there are drow here. There are 4 of them, to be precise. And of course, as is appropriate with my new flaw, I leap straight into hunting mode. I want to hunt down these enemies, which, to be fair, looks like normal behaviour as far as the party is concerned. That they're not aware of any difference so far. So we go into battle against these 4 drow, thinking, oh, this will be easy. But it turns out that 2 of those drow are actually incubi in disguise, and one of them commands me to attack Raynome. And once again, I fail my wisdom save because I'm not a very wise character, funny. Yeah, so I start attacking the party. Now obviously he's a rogue, so he's able to hide very well inside the fog. I use a cast of my ghostly gaze feature, which is an invocation I have that allows me to see through walls, and the DM says, yeah, well, that's fine, you can use that to also, if you can look through solid walls, I can use it to look through fog, surely. So I'm looking through the fog to try and find him in the fog. He realizes that I'm able to see him. I'm walking towards him with glowing red insane eyes, and he just like nopes out of the combat and flees into the very next room. And so now it's literally just Virtue against everyone. And once again, Virtue, my gosh, proving that he is like just too strong for the party. Seriously, Blade Singer is it's a broken subclass because he just takes on all of the enemies in that room. Steel Wind Strike, they're all down, dead. And of course, at that moment, the insanity kind of leaves me. The compulsion to kill Raynome leaves me, and I'm no longer trying to hunt him down. I still have this new flaw, of course, that I want to hunt everybody. However, we decide to roleplay it this way, that Virtue and Raynome have both noticed that I just turned on the party, so they assume that I must have been cursed somehow, and so he casts Remove Curse, and in the process, it removes this new flaw that I had. And then I realise, oh, that means Tix must have a curse as well, because he also walked through those pillars, and so I also cast Remove Curse, and he too returns to normal. And in that moment, I once again look at my list and I realise, oh, silly me, I had the list upside down. I'm not supposed to kill the party after all. So beyond this, we then make our way. There's a few side tracks along the way, but the important thing is we make our way towards this Drow fortress. Basically, there's a large tower which has lookouts inside, a wall, and beyond this, there is a fortress to House Freth. And, well, at this point, I'm feeling really bad about turning on the party. And so, and I was basically useless in the last combat. And so I say to the party, don't worry, I will deal with this myself. They're kind of sneaking forward stealthily. I'm just like, no, I will deal with this myself. And before they can stop me, I just misty step inside the tower. So just to kind of paint a picture for you, the tower is basically 4 floors. There's the ground floor, which, where you can just go through to the other side. There's 1 floor above where there are 4 drow on lookout. There's a floor above that with another 4 drow. And then there's the roof where there is 1 like drow leader. He's like in charge of them. And so I misty step to that first level, and there's 4 drow there, and I just take them all on single-handedly, and I use Soul Cage to absorb the souls of one of them in the moment of death. Job done. I then, there's like a hatch to the floor above. I just bolt this shut. I then go down to the floor below, and I open the door to allow the party inside. Lovely. Easily done. Could have very badly backfired, but fortunately it didn't. So obviously now we've got 3 of us in the party. We then go back up to the floor where I was. The drow on the floor above, they heard that fighting was happening and they're kind of banging on the door like, let us in, what's going on down there? I try and convince them that we're actually, no, it's fine, I just fell over, but they don't buy it. So but there's 3 of us now, so at this point it's trivial to just kind of like open the hatch. They all kind of come tumbling down. We lay our trap for them, and we deal with them very easily. It's very straightforward. So we clear out those floors, but by the time we get to the roof, we find that the leader has disappeared. He's no longer there. However, from the roof, we're able to look out beyond the wall, and we see the fortress in the distance, the kind of palace to House Freth in the distance. So at this point, I then turn to this new soul that is trapped inside the cage. Because one of the features of Soul Cage, I love this spell. I already love this spell. One of the features of Soul Cage is that it allows you to create a sensor that allows you to see inside somewhere which is familiar to that person during life. It's like an arcane eye almost. And so I use the sensor to see inside the palace that we see in the distance, to see what's actually in there. And using this sensor, we see Erlal Freth herself, the Drow priestess. Apparently she is heavily pregnant. She's reclining on a chair, and there are 2 males in attendance. One of them that I also know from this soul cage is her brother, and he's kind of pacing back and forwards in front of her, and he seems very angry and agitated. And Erlal Freth, the priestess, she's telling him off. She's saying he wasn't able to control the Minotaurs, and she's basically rebuking him for the Minotaurs. Very interesting. So then we go back downstairs to the bottom floor, and lo and behold, the leader that I mentioned earlier, he's there, he's waiting for us. And he says, come with me. And basically he's going to take us away to some rando drow somewhere for processing and questioning. He's going to figure out who we are, blah, blah, blah. No way. Not now. So I immediately step forward and I cast Hold Monster on him. To which he's like, counterspell? To which I'm like, counterspell your counterspell, baby. So then he rolls, he makes the save, but then Virtue uses Silvery Barbs. He rolls again, he fails the save, and so he is held. And at this point, I step forward and using full intimidation, eyes glowing, towering over him, I say, listen here, you. It has been a very bad day for me. I have been cursed and forced to attack my friends, but that ends now. I don't know who you think we are, but as you can see, we are more powerful than anything you have prepared for. We are the ones who have taken care of those Minotaurs that your leader is so concerned about. Single-handed. We are the ones who stopped a Demon King from being summoned. Single-handed. And we are the ones who took out every single drow inside this tower in less than a minute. Single-handed. There is nothing you can do to stop us. You will now take us directly to Alfreth. I am done with being toyed with. And wouldn't you know it, he agrees. And that is where the session ended. Oh, and in the midst of everything, Raynome at one point manages to roll a nat 20 during an attack roll, and his magical breeze block, once again, it evolves Pokemon style, and it can now be some sort of propeller block, which he can use to gain a flight speed. So upon attacking somebody, he's like using it almost like a helicopter blade so that he can then fly to safety, almost like the Swarm Keeper Ranger feature. So yeah, that's an ability. That's something that happened. So yeah, a couple of very juicy sessions there, and it leaves us all nicely set up for a confrontation with Erlal at the beginning of the next session. What does she know about Kef the Goblin? What will she be demanding from us? Will she try to use us, or will she foolishly try to fight against us? Who knows? All I know is that we're going to be a full party next week, so not to be trifled with. And yeah, the DM is going to be once again pulling out all the stops. So yeah, looking forward to that. But in the meantime, thank you once again for looking through this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'll be back here with another recount of Dungeon of the Mad Mage in 2 weeks' time. Until then, thank you very much for watching. Take care.